Well, you hear about this one when the families that sued Universal Orlando after a mascot uses a whiskey papa gesture. Oh no, what is it? Well, two families are suing Universal Orlando after an actor dressed up as a Despicable Me character named Gru flashed the whiskey papa symbol for posing for photos with biracial children. The girls were 5 and 6 years old at the time, and you can see there the actor in the costume bending over, holding the girl's hand, and they're taking a photo. I don't know all the things you're trying to think of when you're in one of these costumes and getting in position, but flashing the OK symbol deliberately to be in some family's photo book? Really? I'm sure the guy was tired, hungry, distracted, busy, surrounded by chaos, and he was like, ooh, I'm going to show them. I'm going to flash Whiskey Papa on their vacation pictures. And of course, the problem with this is the ADL has called this a hate symbol. We'll get into why in a second. The family claimed all sorts of emotional trauma, and now, as of yesterday, Universal has settled the lawsuit. Now, the terms of the settlement are confidential, but it looks like they won money over this crap, right? Universal cucked and cucked hard. We never want our guests to experience what this family did. This is not acceptable, and we are sorry, and we are taking steps to make sure nothing like this happens again. You can go through any sort of your pictures on your phone by like a millisecond by millisecond basis to try and get the perfect photo. I mean, what if you were just fishing for this? This could have been something that happened in the blink of an eye. He could have been moving his hands all over. I mean, he's in a big, bulky, awkward costume. And to top it all off, the guy here in the costume, he got fired. Fantastic, right? Another victim of cancel culture nonsense. But that's the thing with what the left is doing these days. You have to continually invent new ways to be racist because you can't find any actual racism. So you just change the definition, make innocuous symbols like the OK symbol be a sign of secret dog whistling bigotry. You have to astroturf it, and you have to astroturf it hard, and then it requires people to go along with it. Nobody wants to challenge the ADL. And so now big institutions like Universal have to pay the price. What do they used to call it? It's like a shakedown or something? It's kind of like a mafia, right? Now, what's funny, if you ever study public speaking, you will be coached, right? That's what they said about Nick Sandmann. He was coached. Well, everybody that stands in front of a camera or is public facing in any way is coached. Particularly what to do with your hands, because you do a lot of communication with your body and you don't want to unintentionally give meaning away that you're not trying to convey with your words. This particular symbol is something used in business speaking, public setting type scenarios in place of pointing, because pointing is considered very aggressive. So you do what is called the sand pinch. And this is something, and it's the reason Donald Trump did it so much, and that got to the genesis of this hoax. Donald Trump was a businessman that spoke in public, and rather than point at people and be like, you, to appear less aggressive, since he is a pretty big guy as well, you do what's called the sand pinch. The tips of the index finger and thumb come together, almost as if pinching a grain of sand with the palm facing downward. Oh, the exact same symbol the poor Despicable Me guy made. What it means, this gesture can even be an OK gesture, but is most often used by speakers to make a point or explain something important. In fact, Alan and Barbara Pease, in their definitive book on body language, don't think they're closet white supreme pizzas. In the definitive book of body language, science, right? And authoritative, credentialed, educated people, right, leftists? They taught this to a group of speakers, this sand pinch. They taught to a group of speakers, politicians, and business leaders and measured audience reactions. Those who listened to the speakers using the sand pinch were described as being thoughtful, goal-oriented, and focused. In fact, to make this even more ridiculous, it can even mean perfect in some parts of the world. So what happened here was essentially a 4chan hoax. They noticed that Donald Trump did the sand pinch quite often, and so they said we should call this the Whiskey Papa sign. Leftists in the ADL fell for it, and rather than walk around with egg on their face, they continued to double down with their lie and actually declare it a hate symbol. So the OK hand gesture originated as one of these hoaxes in February 2017 when an anonymous 4chaner announced Operation OK, telling other members we must flood Twitter and other social media websites, claiming the OK hand symbol as a sign of white supremes. The user even provided a helpful graphic. The originator also suggested hashtags such as power hand privilege and hashtag not okay. Leftists have dug so deep down into their lunacy, wrote the poster, we must force them to dig more until the rest of society ain't going anywhere near that crap. And they took it, hook, line, and sinker. The ADL literally admits they were trolled and decided, yeah, we'll go with that. And this attempt by this 4chaner to show the absurdity to the left, it's almost like the original Let's Go Brandon. And of course, again, in that instance, rather than admit that they gaslit Americans in real time as to what those members of the crowd were actually chanting, they double down with Dark Brandon. They just cannot speak truth. The modern left cannot speak truth. Oh, there's no left, right, whatever. Globalist, nationalist, you define it how you need to. The point here is we have a significant portion of our population that can't speak truth. They have to lie, or you will be punished. In the case of Universal Studios, 1/3 of Democrats now claim that men can get pregnant. 1 out of 3 are going along with that lie. Well, what's the problem with this? What does that lead to? Now, Jordan Peterson, with his flaws, okay, he's not the second coming, but he still is a pretty darn good psychologist, and where he knows what he's talking about and doesn't resort to baffle garble, he can be a pretty solid analyst. This is what he has to say about lying and how it leads to fascism.
What would you say? The wisest commentators on totalitarian states, like Solzhenitsyn, and many psychological commentators, Jung was a good example of that, made a very straightforward case that you can't have a totalitarian state unless every single person is willing to lie about everything all the time. And you can think about that as top-down because the leaders lie too, and they also enforce punishments if you don't lie. But then you can also think about it. The totalitarian spirit is replicated at every level of the society. And so in a truly totalitarian state, husbands lie to their wives and parents lie to their children. And the totalitarian state is actually the grip of the lie. And so, and people will certainly go along with that. I mean we're seeing that emerge here with cancel culture. It's like lie, yes, or else.
Interesting, the totalitarian state relies on everybody lying all the time. And you can see how this has kind of been worming its way into society. There was a time when there was people that tried to get this going with O.J. Simpson. Oh, O.J. Simpson is innocent. And back then we had truth tellers like Norm Macdonald on Weekend Update, who got fired for speaking the truth. Today, in a modern context, we have George Floyd, who's literally been elevated to sainthood for overdosing on drugs. Now, should the cops have called for medical assistance rather than using a restraining hold on him? Yes, but there's a lot of people that will stand by the lie that this was a chokehold and he was choked. I can't breathe. These people are liars, and they are, whether they think they're doing it for the greater good or not, they are embodying the totalitarian spirit. Everyone is expected to lie or they will be canceled, and this is what makes everything worse. Why is the T so venerated? Well, because they're the latest litmus test. Will you say stunning and brave? Will you say this shop teacher is a woman who's obviously openly mocking normal society? This is what an advocate for tyrannical takeover looks like. This is a useful idiot. And there's a reason they celebrate it. Because you are lying so blatantly, so obviously. And the bureaucratic state has to go with it. There's a video of the poor principal talking to a Rebel News, and he's like, you keep calling him a he. It's she. You have to use the right pronouns. It's like, you have to lie or you will be punished. And I think this guy does have to lie or he'll lose his job. But that's exactly what Peterson's talking about. That's exactly how you get down this dark path of authoritarianism. And it's why you need to venerate. It's why we need to support and stand by people that speak truth. You can't let these little lies get the bit in their teeth and run away. I mean, we got through all this by just not calling out the okay hand symbol nonsense hard enough. And you understand why, because conflict is uncomfortable, and they make it uncomfortable on purpose. Evil makes its greatest strides because people decide, well, it's not worth it here. It's not worth fighting here. Well, when? But the good news is there is a lot of people pushing back. There is more and more people calling it out. There are people now that are just refusing the lie. You know, it's no accident that the motto of this channel is speak truth or serve evil. Because if you refuse to speak the truth, and if you are willing to say things that you know are false, then you are serving evil.
And we can't say no to Putin because we sold our soul for his oil and gas. And we did that to elevate our moral stature in relationship to saving the planet. And so here we are, facing a very dire winter, hoisted on the petard of our own foolishness and moral presumption. We're saving the planet. We'll see. I don't think so. It doesn't look like it to me. And this is the most catastrophic issue here. Assuming that we're facing an environmental crisis of planetary proportions, which is not something I buy, by the way. Assuming we are, well, then I would imagine that you would put in place measures that would ameliorate that problem instead of exacerbating it. But all the measures you're putting in place are actually making the environmental problem worse. So how is that even vaguely acceptable? And I look at that and I think, oh, I see. It's just like George Orwell said about middle-class socialists 50 years ago. It's not that you love the planet, it's that you hate humanity. So, well, have at her, boys and girls, and we'll see what happens this winter. And it's very terrifying to me, especially here, you know, because your energy prices have gone way out of control, and that's going to hurt a lot of poor people, and certainly around the world as well. The World Bank already estimated that we've put 350 million people into what they call food insecurity. 350 million. That's 3 times as many as the communists managed to kill. Maybe we can manage that in the winter. But the planet has too many people on it anyway, so, you know, that's just poor people.